Hello, I am Dan Stapleton, and this is the IGN review discussion for Bloodborne. With me here is Chloe Rad,
Hey guys.
Marty Sleva,
Hey!
and our reviewer, Brandon Terrell.
Hello.
Brandon, you gave this game a 9.1 for amazing,
I sure did.
and here is what you said.
Bloodborne is an amazing, exacting, and exhausting pilgrimage through a gorgeous land that imposes the feeling of approaching the bottom of a descent into madness. Though extended load times and minor frame rate hitches have an effect on the pacing, it's otherwise an intensely challenging and rewarding game. There's an incredible power to unlocking its mysteries and in succeeding, despite its demand for a pound of your flesh. For more on Bloodborne, stick with IGN.
So let's talk combat in Bloodborne. This is very different from Dark Souls. It's faster paced, more diving, rolling, there are guns. What do you guys think about it?
I really like this new pace.
Yeah?
The game is angrier and more violent and more out to get you than the previous Soul games. Yeah. Whereas Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 was very sword and board, where you sort of had a shield, you had a sword, and you were sort of always hunkered behind that shield. You don't have that in this game. Everything wants to kill you, and you can't just hang back and let the world sort of unfold around you. You have to get in there, and you have to get messy. Literally get messy, because you're going to be slashing through things and getting blood and viscera all over
Oh,
you.
you'll be covered.
Yeah, so I'm totally digging it.
Like I wrote in the first part of my review in progress, like I don't think either are better than the other, but I think they're definitely different. And I think getting to know each of them differently is sort of valuable. You know, as a methodical player, like I'm more inclined to do the Dark Souls sort of pick my moments, take my shots, dance around, soak up some damage with my shield if I have to. So Bloodborne was sort of like an opposite direction for me. Like the first 2 hours or something, I was not really getting the premise that, and even in some of the later boss fights, but you know, hanging back with my halberd, waiting to hit that one hard shot. Whereas I feel Bloodborne is really best played by getting up in their face and like hammering them, like just hammering them,
Yeah.
you know?
Literally, in some cases.
Yeah,
Totally,
literally.
What's your favorite weapon?
Oh man, honestly, like so I love the transforming aspect of the weapons,
Yes.
and starting off with that saw cleaver, like that's just like such a great, satisfying feeling.
Yeah.
It's that iconic weapon that they've been showing since the game's launch.
Sure.
But just getting in there and your quick strikes and oof.
But man, the Hunter Axe by
Yeah,
far
that
is
was
the
mine
best
too.
transforming weapon in my opinion, because not only do you have relatively quick slashes with the one-handed, but you unfold that baby and then you take a step back. I got through literally like the first 2 levels of the game by walking up to a monster, watching him like lift his axe up, and then I take a step back and he swings, and then I just deliver this earth-shattering, like I cut him in half with an
The
axe.
charge spin was great too. That saved me so many times.
Charge spin is amazing.
I also absolutely love the way the actual transformation of the weapons plays into the combo system.
Yeah,
It looks so cool.
It is very cool to like hit 2 slow slashes, unfold the axe, and then finish it up.
And the
or poke.
Kirk hammer was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The Kirk
The
hammer is
sword
just
hammer.
silly.
Yeah, the
Is
Kirk
there-
hammer, which is ostensibly a sword that you put into a hammer in your back and it becomes a giant hammer.
What do you guys think about the secondary weapons? I mean, you've got guns in this game.
I mean, I think the reason that none of us jumped to really talk about them is the fact that they are supportive weapons. They are not the sexy sort of, you know, marquee weapons of the game that transform and do all kinds of crazy trick stuff. But they're, you know, vital, super vital. Like they lend that level of support that you use. You use guns to stun enemies, you use guns to pull enemies towards you. And then there's, you know, some fancier stuff that surprisingly, like, of all the supportive weapons, like the torch for me was the most useful thing, because there's so much darkness in a From Software game. But of course there's, like, you know, the sexier ones like the flamethrower and,
Yeah,
and all
totally.
kinds
Yeah,
of
It was fun, yeah.
Yeah, enemies in this game tend to hate fire a lot. So
Yeah.
combining your torch with, you know, throwing oil on an enemy and then using your torch.
Yeah.
Did you guys find yourself using the visceral attacks a lot, like stunning enemies with the gun and then?
Yeah, a handful of the boss fights, especially, those were great. You know, seeing an enemy get down on one knee, stagger to the ground, and then you run up to them. You're able to do this insane attack where you just put your hand in their eyeball and pull it out.
For me, like
It's
in Dark Souls, like the parry repost was such an important part of like, you know, the game. But like I feel like whenever I did stun enemies, it was always on accident.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I would try to plan it and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I almost feel like charge attacking in the back is the most consistent way of hitting your parry riposte visceral attack damage. Because, you know, you go up there with the gun, and if you want to be in range to hit the visceral attack after you stun them, you're basically putting yourself in harm's way, which I understand is sort of the same principle as the parry, but getting really up close and then missing that gunshot by a fraction of a second is super painful.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really hard to deal with.
Is there anything you guys don't like about the combat or think it should have done better?
The dodging didn't seem as effective as it does in Dark Souls. Like you have the invincibility frames in Dark Souls, right?
Yeah.
Now if you're locked onto an enemy, you sidestep instead of dodging. You have to like be not locked on if you want to roll around.
Yeah.
I feel like there still are some frames though that you're relatively safe.
Yeah,
in.
like it. Yeah, I don't know.
But like the terrain that you cover is definitely, it feels a little more limited in Bloodborne, right? A lot of times I found myself just dropping targeting and just rolling like a madman around to the other side, retargeting, and then doing what I need to.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a game that favors people who liked playing kind of fast, nimble, like featherweights. You're not gonna, you're not gonna feel like you're wearing that like Onion Knight armor or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you ostensibly, no matter what you're wearing, you are a fast, agile character.
Yeah, and even when you're spec'd to like take a lot of physical punishment, like I didn't feel too much difference there.
Yeah.
That was another significant difference between Bloodborne and Dark Souls is there's no equipment load, so you always have like the same speed. Your roll is always the same speed.
Yeah.
You don't have
And Brandon, you said in the review that you had issues with the frame rate. Did you find that ever affected the combat?
Rarely. It rarely ever affected the combat. The majority of the time the frame rate really plays into it is when like something is barreling down on you, right, or something's off in the distance, and you're turning the camera quickly. There's a lot of, like Old Yarnum in particular, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of fire, there's a lot of particles going on. And so that frame rate makes it sort of difficult to spot enemies coming at you. There are moments in combat where, that frame rate, you might lose a couple like really precious fractions of a second in order to see an attack coming. But by and large, it's mostly noticeable, and it sort of like pokes holes in that immersion of the game.
So you wouldn't say it ever caused you to die when you didn't think you should have died?
I don't think it ever caused me to die. I think it probably added to the stress and frustration at times, but I mean, that game is just an impressive experience. So, I mean, it's another scoop on the pile.
Sadness.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to think about.
All right, well, that's what we think
vulgar.
of Bloodborne's combat. For more on Bloodborne, much more, stay on IGN.